Well, ladies and gentlemen, what we are witnessing unfold across the Middle East right now is nothing short of the complete and utter collapse of American imperial hubris. If you've been following the news, you've heard the bluster from Washington. Donald Trump, in his infinite reality TV wisdom, ordered a naval blockade of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Pentagon, with all its shiny hardware and trillions of dollars in budget, claimed they had sealed off the Strait of Hormuz and Iranian ports with an iron fist, U.S.
Ibrahim Zolfagari. According to him, if the United States moves forward in the Strait of Hormuz, the strategic Bab el-Mandeb could be next, raising the specter of a widening maritime flashpoint.
Riyadh has warned Washington that the U.S. blockade might prompt Houthis to block the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in retaliation.
President Trump has said that he was imposing his own blockade, preventing oil and gas and other ships going back and forth to Iran in an effort to try to strangle the Iranian economy and subdue them that way. So far, it doesn't look like it's working.
Central Command has been repeating the same tired line over and over again. No ships made it past the U.S. blockade. But here is the reality they don't want you to see on the evening news in the West. The blockade has failed. It has failed so spectacularly that it has exposed the U.S. Navy as a paper tiger in the face of Iranian resolve. We have confirmed reports backed by independent maritime tracking data and Iranian state media that vessels are still moving. The OFAC-sanctioned Iranian vessel Golban, a ship Washington specifically wanted to strangle, continues its transit near the Strait of Hormuz, despite the U.S. Navy's presence. Another bulk carrier, the Sea Champion, successfully passed through the strait into the Sea of Oman. This isn't just a minor leak in the blockade, it's a gaping hole, and this is where the panic in the Pentagon truly begins. Because the Iranians didn't stop at just slipping ships past the American guns. They changed the entire geometry of the battlefield. Reports have emerged of serious naval activities by the Iranian armed forces that have sent shockwaves through American strategic planners. We are talking about the movement of anti-ship missile batteries and, most crucially, the detected laying of naval mines around the Bab al-Mandab Strait. That's the Gate of Tears, the southern choke point of the Red Sea. By activating this second front, Iran has effectively told the world, if you blockade us in the Persian Gulf, you will have no trade in the Red Sea either. The Iranian military leadership has been unequivocal, stating that if the U.S. continues this illegal blockade, the flow of commerce in the Persian Gulf, the Sea of Oman, and the Red Sea will come to a grinding halt, period. This is not a bluff. It's a strategic masterstroke that has turned the tables on the American Navy, forcing them to operate in waters where they are now terrified of hitting mines. The freedom of navigation the U.S. Navy loves to preach about is now a distant memory. Their ships are tiptoeing around a potential minefield of Iran's making. And let's be absolutely clear about the political context. The U.S. blocking of Hormuz is not just a military action. It is, as Iranian officials have rightly pointed out, a direct prelude to violating the fragile ceasefire. It is a textbook act of bad faith from a regime that knows nothing else. In the face of this unyielding Iranian position, what did Trump do? He didn't send more ships into the minefield. No, he panicked. He turned to Beijing, suddenly remembering that China exists, and that maybe they can help stop the militarization of the waters around the Islamic Republic, after his own illegal blockade has done nothing but accelerate it. It's a breathtaking display of desperation. And while Trump runs around posting on social media that China is very happy he's permanently opening the Strait of Hormuz, let's look at the reality on the water. Trump claims China has agreed not to supply weapons to Iran. This is the same rhetoric of a desperate man trying to spin a massive retreat as a victory. The fact is, the Iranian Navy has already challenged the U.S. Navy to the point where Washington is effectively retreating from its maximalist demands. The U.S. fears that ships might hit mines or that the entrance to the Red Sea will be shut completely. Before we get into the details of this American capitulation and the massive military buildup they're rushing into the region, I need to stop and ask you for a favor. The kind of reporting we do here, the honest, unfiltered truth about Western hypocrisy and the resistance of nations like Iran, it doesn't get the algorithm boost that corporate media does. If you want to support honest journalism that isn't afraid to call out Washington and Tel Aviv, hit that like button and share this video. Drop a comment below. Even if it's just a dot or a simple word, it helps overpower the algorithmic censorship. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. It's the only way we can keep bringing you these in-depth updates without having to bend the knee to the very powers we critique. Now, where was I? Ah yes, the frantic response from Washington. The failed blockade has triggered not a recalibration of strategy, but a classic American overreaction. A desperate, massive injection of troops and hardware into a theater that is already boiling over. The Washington Post, citing U.S. officials, is reporting that a staggering number of additional forces are on their way to the region. We're talking about roughly 6,000 personnel aboard the USS George H.W. Bush carrier strike group, along with its attendant fleet of warships. As if that wasn't enough, another 4,200 Marines and sailors from the Boxer Amphibious Ready Group. We're talking about roughly 6,000 personnel aboard the USS George H.W. Bush carrier strike group, along with its attendant fleet of warships. As if that wasn't enough, another 4,200 Marines and sailors from the Boxer Amphibious Ready Group and the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit are being shoved into the furnace. The air bridge over the Atlantic is absolutely beaming with activity. C-17s and C-5s ferrying the machinery of war to staging bases in Europe and the Middle East. This is the classic desperate American playbook. When diplomacy and sanctions fail, and when the threat of military force is met with a shrug and a missile battery, you send more aircraft carriers. You send more Marines. You try to intimidate with numbers, but here's the tragic irony for the Pentagon. All this hardware is now sailing towards a sea littered with mines. Mines that, according to some reports, even the Iranian military cannot precisely account for after the chaotic early days of the conflict. U.S. warships are essentially entering a floating minefield of their own making. All because Donald Trump's ego couldn't handle being told no at the negotiation table. And what a negotiation table it has been. Let's pull back the curtain on the diplomatic farce that has been unfolding behind the scenes. The official Islamabad talks collapsed spectacularly because the United States, in its arrogance, came not to negotiate, but to dictate terms of surrender. Iran, having weathered the storm of unprovoked American and Israeli aggression, flatly refused. So, what does Washington do when it can't bully someone into submission? It starts sending secret messages. The back channels have been humming, and the key conduit is Pakistan. We saw a high-level Pakistani delegation, led by none other than the Army Chief Asim Munir, landing in Tehran. This wasn't a casual visit. Reports confirm that the delegation was there to deliver a U.S. message to Tehran and to lay the groundwork for a second round of negotiations. The rumor mill is in overdrive, and the whispers from diplomatic circles suggest that the messages being carried included Trump's willingness to open the strait permanently while agreeing in part to Iran's core conditions. This is the great irony of the moment. Washington, which started this by demanding Iran bend the knee, is now secretly sending word through Pakistani generals that it is willing to cut a deal on Iran's terms. The American president, who loves to project an image of strength, is engaged in what looks suspiciously like a covert surrender. However, Tehran is not easily fooled. The Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman, Esmail Baghai, has been refreshingly direct about these shenanigans. He has publicly denied reports of a simple ceasefire extension, stating that such rumors are not confirmed, and that the United States must prove its seriousness. He emphasized that U.S. attempts to isolate Iran are not only illegal, but could actively create grounds for a ceasefire violation. The Iranian military, as Baghai noted, is fully prepared to respond appropriately if necessary. And if necessary is a big phrase right now because the military is not sitting on its hands. As the ceasefire nears its end, the message from the Iranian armed forces is one of absolute unwavering readiness. They have stated that they did not use their full military capacity during the previous defensive operations, and that they are prepared to unveil new missile, drone, and warfare capabilities that are far beyond the enemy's imagination. The Defense Ministry has made it clear that the nation is fully equipped to sustain prolonged operations. This is a stark warning to the U.S. and Israel. The forces are ready, the missiles are stocked, and the will of the people is unbroken. The Bab al-Mandab is not just a point on a map. It's a pressure point that Iran can squeeze whenever it chooses, thanks to its allied forces in Yemen. The U.S. military, despite its bluster about eliminating any ship that comes close to their blockade, is now navigating a perilous and humiliating situation where they cannot even guarantee the safety of their own vessels, let alone control the flow of global commerce. So where does this leave us? It leaves us watching the unspooling of a geopolitical thriller where the ending was written not in Washington but in Tehran. The U.S. has ordered a blockade that doesn't block. It has rushed troops into a region where they are sitting ducks for asymmetrical warfare. It has secretly begged for a deal on terms dictated by the nation it set out to destroy. Donald Trump, the man who loves to talk about strength, is demonstrating the very definition of weakness. He wanted to isolate Iran. Instead, he has united the Islamic Republic and its allies across the region. He wanted to cripple Iran's economy. Instead, he has sent global energy markets into a panic that hurts his own allies more. The Iranian Navy didn't just challenge the U.S. Navy. It exposed the hollow core of American military power in the 21st century. As the ceasefire deadline of April 22nd approaches, the ball is entirely in Washington's court. They can either accept the new reality of Iranian strength and come to the table as equals, or they can continue this charade of force and watch as their empire sinks further into the sands of a war they cannot win. The Iranian military is ready. The American planners are in shock. And the world is watching as the myth of U.S. naval invincibility crumbles in the face of real determined resistance. We will continue to bring you updates as this story develops.